Hey everybody, Chris Pice here with another PCA Sim Racing Classroom. This week we are tackling the Watkins Glen up in New York. We'll be driving the 992 Cup car as we will throughout this season 14 series. This is the second race of the multi-race series, with the first one having just been had at Spa. So we're going from Belgium to stateside up in New York at the wonderful Watkins Glen International. We are going to be racing the boot configuration, which is kind of the standard IMSA package, including the bus stop at Watkins Glen. So Watkins Glen, there's not a whole lot of folks that haven't at least seen Watkins Glen or haven't driven it in sim racing. But if you haven't, I am very jealous because you get to experience it for the first time. It's one of the most wonderful tracks that we have, not only in my opinion in all of iRacing, but in all the world. It's a fast track. I think it actually has the title for the fastest average speed over a lap, even more so than Road America. So it is quick. It is high risk, high reward in certain spots, but we'll go through it as we typically do on these classrooms and talk about each corner individually and where to pass, where not to, kind of the danger areas, and where to focus when you're driving, where you can get the most benefit from practice and maybe the most speed. So we're just coming off of Spa, which is great. And it was a fun time. It was definitely interesting, big fields, but Spa has its little quirks in terms of, where you can make moves. And sometimes some people get caught out. I think we saw that, in a few of the races. But how was everybody's Spa? Anybody have any comments about Spa or any questions, especially for those newcomers, to PCA Sim Racing? Everything seem okay, or everybody happy with their result or unhappy? We're not going to get into if there's a penalty that was dished out, that's for race control and for them to decide. But overall, what were your thoughts of Spa in round one?
It
Anybody?
was great.
Oh
I
yeah.
loved it.
What were the parts that you liked? Did you like the competition? Did you perform well? Did you perform better than you were expecting?
Competition was good. I think the bus stop was challenging not to rear end people, so that was a little bit to overcome, but otherwise it was what I expected.
Nice. Okay, cool. And that's one of the things that we can actually discuss, especially here at Watkins Glen, because we're going to have another bus stop, so to speak, uh, in that it's called the bus stop, and we're going from a very, very fast portion of the track into one of the slower portions of the track, to slow down for the bus stop. So we'll go over that in detail and try to think of some best practices that we can take when engaging things like the bus stop, to make sure that we're not rolling into the back of somebody, or somebody breaks a little earlier than we expect and takes us off guard. So but anyway, we'll start off. I ran some laps a few days ago here at Watkins Glen. One of the first things you may notice if you haven't loaded it up since the patch is that the some of the I think the curbing and some of the sponsorship signs and stuff have changed. Unless either that or I haven't driven Watkins Glen in a while, but everything looks a little bit different. We got kind of the mustard and ketchup curbing, as I call it, that is now kind of prevalent everywhere. And then also some of the updated sponsorships. But the track's looking pretty darn good with the new update. The other thing that I am trying to work with is kind of the new UI. So some of my little telemetry items have moved around a little bit, and everything is darker now. So we'll just have to deal with it and see where it is. But if you can see my screen, you'll notice that down in the bottom left here with the little steering wheel and the gas pedal, which is currently green, this is kind of the telemetry. So if you want to look at what I'm doing with my hands or my feet, it's right down here. It used to be kind of over a little bit to the left. So just a little bit different. But as I used to like to start these, I'm just going to run it full speed, so you can kind of get an idea and sense of the pace, and then we'll go through turn by turn. So that is the lap that we're going to try to discuss. So we're going to back it up to that previous lap. There we go. Just make sure that I'm on the right one. Perfect. Okay, so far chase. Let me get my little camera working a little bit better than that. There we go. Okay. So a couple of quirks and a couple of things I probably need to talk about with the Cup car. So if you race the first week, you realize obviously the Cup car is not the GT3 car, even though they both bear a GT3 in their name. We don't have ABS. We don't have traction control. We also lack downforce from the GT3 spec counterpart. It does not lack power, that being said. In fact, this car is in some cases more powerful and quicker than a GT3 spec car because it doesn't have the parachute of aerodynamics slowing it down on straightaways. So effectively what we have is a bar of soap with a ton of power. So it can get up to speed, it can squirt out of corners really well. It just can't brake or turn very well. So we have to keep that in mind. No ABS means our threshold braking is super crucial to getting good lap times out of the Cup car. Those that can brake really well and trail brake this car into corners and go into the entry of corners really well with this platform are going to normally have the best lap times. So this is a car that really, really rewards good braking patience on corner entry. Corner exit, engines over the rear axle or past the rear axle like a typical 911 is. There's tons of grip in the rear of the car. It's still able to over rotate, and if you start to lose it through an oversteer situation, it's hard to recover. So we don't want to get into situations where we're sliding the rears a lot, overheating those rear tires. We want to keep everything nice and tidy in check, roll on throttle, but we can roll on throttle pretty quickly with this car because of the tremendous amount of grip in the rear. So in a nutshell, the Cup car really doesn't like to turn a lot. There's no weight up front, and there's no aero. And it has a lot of traction in the rear, meaning that it really likes to come out of corners fast, and we can use that to its advantage. So keep that in mind when you drive this platform. You got to be delicate. You got to be smooth with this car, or else it's gonna bite your head off if you're not. So for Watkins Glen, we'll start off coming up into turn one. So turn one at Watkins Glen is the most important corner on the entire track. It's the most important corner on the track because it is leading onto the longest straightaway. In fact, it's probably the longest straightaway in North America if I had to guess. This straightaway starts at the exit of turn one and ends at the bus stop. You are full throttle all the way through that period of track, which is a significant amount of time. A bad run through turn one is going to hamper you all the way down that straightaway. A good run through turn one is going to benefit you all the way down that straightaway. So out of all the turns on the track, this is absolutely the most important. Coming into this, if we're just doing a normal, say, qualifying lap or a normal lap where we have no traffic, my brake zone tends to be the 300 board that's up here in front of us. So we go 5, 4, 3, 300 board. As it's passing my view in my peripheral vision when I'm driving, that's when I will get on the brakes. It's a pretty hard threshold braking zone. The braking zone starts level and then starts to go a little bit downhill. So we really need to focus on when we get on the brake, we hit that maximum pressure, we stay with that pressure to slow the car down, and then we start bleeding it off as we turn in. Turn in is going to be somewhere around the 1 board. And the goal of the corner entry on this corner is to try to get the car down to the curbing. There, you'll notice that when we get to it, there's 2 sets of curbings here. A really inside curbing, which is very severe, and then a secondary curbing, which is next to the track, which is pretty smooth. We want to be on that smooth part of the curbing closest to the track, but we don't want to cut the corner so much to get on the secondary curbing, which is pretty substantial and will upset the balance of the car. If we go forward a little bit, we brake, like I said, at the 300 board. Right here is when I'm on the brake pedal. It is a pretty firm brake pedal without locking the tires up. We get to about the 100 board. We pass the 100 board. Our vision should be down here through the corner. And this is what I'm talking about with the curbing. You'll notice that this first part of the curbing matches the camber of the track. And then there's the second higher curbing on the inside of that. We don't want to get on the second curbing. We want to stay on the first curbing. Our idea coming through this corner is a late apex. So if you turn in early and you apex around the blue, that's too early. We want this car to be somewhere around the yellow or even the red to make sure we're focusing on slow entry, getting on throttle as soon as we can to hold it coming out of the corner. So as we turn down, my apex is on the red and maybe even the blue after the red, right around here. But as we're going through this apex zone, this bowl in the camber and the track is really grabbing or giving us grip. The suspension and everything is compressing into the track. It's giving a ton of grip at apex for us to be already adding throttle and accelerating out of this corner at the apex point. And you can actually see that right now with my telemetry. Even though I'm at the apex, I'm about half throttle right now. As I add that throttle, I can pretty much be full throttle as I'm coming through the corner because of all this camber. But at the same time, as soon as I add that throttle, I have to unwind my hands. If I keep my hands in a maximum steering angle, the grip in the car is not there. I'm asking the car to turn and accelerate, and it can overwhelm the rear tires and lead to oversteer. So what we want to do is as we accelerate, we want to be releasing our hands or releasing that steering angle to allow the car to turn lateral grip into horizontal grip and go forward as opposed to turning. Or opening our hands consistently. As we get to the end, our track out of turn one, all that camber that we had at the apex is slowly disappearing. So as you can see, as we crest at the top of and the exit of turn one, we're going from on camber to flat tabletop. And so if you come through this corner and you're a little too hot or you apexed a little too early and you've got a lot of steering angle, as you crest this little hill right here, you're going to find the car's really going to get out of sorts. The best thing to do in that scenario is open your hands, drive in a straight line. You've got all this room out here on the left to safely maneuver the car without causing a big wreck. If you're trying to be a hero and save it, you're probably going to spin and end up going nose into the right side wall, or you J-hook it in the left side wall. If you go over the curbing with all four tires, you will get a 1X. But I'd rather take a 1X than a wrecked car. So if we wind it back just a little bit, I can show you what this looks like without me starting and stopping it. So coming through, turn in after the 100, off the brake, start rolling on speed right at the compression point, opening our hands, catching the car, and getting a good run coming out of turn one. Like I said, most important corner on the track. We have to make sure we're getting that solid run so we can stay full throttle all the way through the uphill S's. Now, the second and third corners are probably the uphill, we'll call them the uphill S's. This is all flat out, so you should have your foot buried all the way through this section. Maybe on your first lap, if the track is really hot, you may need to be a little bit more careful and breathe in certain spots just to make sure you're 100% good. But after your first lap, you should be 100% full throttle. That doesn't mean you can turn your brain off, though. We still need to treat these corners as proper corners. Because this is a straightaway, what we need to do is we need to really focus on moving our hands as little as possible, being as smooth as we can. So anytime we take this steering wheel, and I'll grab my other one, and so you can see it. So anytime we take the steering wheel and we're turning the steering wheel one way or the other, we are adding friction to the front axle of the car. So the rubber, the front tires, as we're turning, is actively slowing the car down because there's more friction. If we keep the steering wheel and the tires straight, there's less friction because the car is rolling forward. So the more we use this thing, the less that we're going to be, or the less our rate of acceleration. So if we're going in a straightaway at full throttle, we want to try to minimize the amount of steering input that we have so we can accelerate at the fastest rate possible. That will help. So going through the uphill S's, it's easy to turn your brain off and just like, oh, I'm going to turn right, I'm going to turn left now. What we really need to focus on is trying to keep that steering wheel quiet. And this is what I mean. So as I come out of turn one, I'm all the way on track left. This first right-hander coming down the hill, I want to use this little hill to kind of help accelerate me down. So I'm going to take a nice wide entry, But that wide entry means I have a nice wide radius. A wider radius means less turning with my hands, less friction. So a nice wide entry, get all the way down to the curbing and follow this curbing just a little bit because I want to get on the right side to set up for this left hand S, part of the S. Again, as wide as possible going into it so I can keep my hands as quiet as possible. If I take this left-hander from mid-track, I'm going to have to do more steering angle. If I turn more steering angle, I won't be accelerating at the same rate because of the friction loss. So nice and wide, quiet hands, keeping that steering wheel as absolutely subtle movements as possible. And when I get to that curbing, I want to treat it as a normal fast curb. I want to track out appropriately. My track out point is this Armco that is kind of double stacked. So this Armco that acts a little bit of extra Armco, that's my track out point. So I am trying to take this S and straighten it as much as possible effectively is what I'm doing. So the car will end up all the way along the Armco and right alongside for me to take a nice wide angle with my steering here. And then as soon as I come out of this and I'm looking, my vision is always way down the track. So I'm looking way down here. As I see that I'm coming out of the corner, I'm going to start unwinding my hands as soon as possible to get as straight as possible so I'm not scrubbing speed with the front axle on the straightaway. So think about that when you go through those S's and you go through the uphill. It's crucial that you minimize your steering input to maximize your rate of acceleration. Any question through turn 1 or the uphill S's or anything like that? Nope. All right. Can somebody say something just to make sure that you guys hear me all right?
All good.
Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. So now we're coming into the bus stop. So this is kind of the first real big opportunity or real big danger spot, I'd say, on the track. Because we are going on this particular lap, it looks like I'm going 160, 161, 162 before I hit the brakes. If it is a normal lap for me, I am going to brake at just before the 400 board. So after the 5, before the 4. So it's probably about 425 if I had to guess. That allows me enough time to brake where I have a little bit of room for error. So it's not an absolute kamikaze brake where I'm slamming that pedal and hoping to God I don't lock my wheels. I have a little bit of chicken on that bone and I can release the brakes nice and comfortably at that spot just before 400. Can you go later? Sure. Does that benefit you? I don't know. You'd have to look at your telemetry to see if you're actually getting benefit from that. Whenever you brake or you do threshold braking in any car, you are transferring the weight of the car to the front axle pretty significantly. So if you do 100% braking in a threshold braking situation, if this is the car, if this is the front end, this is the rear, you are basically standing the car on its nose. So you're giving a lot of grip to the front tires in that braking scenario. You are taking all the grip away from the rear of the car. So the rear is going to be super light. The front is going to be super grippy. Great for turn-in. But in order to effectively make your turn or the turn that you're setting up for, you somehow have to get the car from this crazy state of all the weight on the front axle to a more neutral state so you can effectively turn. Because you want to use all 4 tires to turn, not just 2. So by doing absolute last second threshold braking, you are reducing your window of opportunity to get, you not only have to get the car slowed down, but then you have to somehow get the car back to a reasonable neutral situation before your turn in point, or as you're turning in to get the maximum amount of corner entry. So when I qualify, actually, I tend to brake a little bit earlier than I maybe would brake for racing situations where I'm trying to outbrake someone, because a well-balanced car is going to perform and behave a lot better than a car that is completely out of balance because you stood it on its nose for braking because you wanted to wait till the last second to brake. This car really benefits from braking a little earlier and softer to maintain platform balance than threshold braking, using ABS to slow you down, and using traction control to kind of sort things out. It's all you, the driver. So leaving a little bit on the table to allow you to have that better platform on a corner entry pays dividends in this car. So keep that in mind. But that being said, for me, I brake just before the 400. Let's actually see where I brake. So I'm not on it yet. Not on it yet. Okay, so pretty much at the 410 board is where I'm starting to hit the brakes. All the way on track left to try to open this first corner of the bus stop, this right-hander. There's lots of lines through the bus stop. The way I take it on this particular lap is not the be-all, end-all. I like this one because the Cup car suspension is relatively soft. So we can hit this new curb pretty hard, and so long as we keep our steering straight as we do the little jump, it's fine. If you don't like all four wheels leaving the ground or two wheels leaving the ground, you can delay your turn in so you don't go over the curbing, over the red and curbing in the concrete, and that seems to be just as effective, just a slightly different line. But the bus stop, the theory behind the bus stop of what we want to do is we kind of want to send it in on the beginning. So we'll slow the car down in this initial brake session, or this brakes period. We'll get the car turned in, tucked in. We'll get off the brakes, and that's crucial for the bus stop. We want to maintain our momentum. Every bit of momentum we lose on entry is impossible to gain in the middle of the bus stop because we're doing a lot of stuff with our hands. So we want to keep the speed up, and the only way to do that is get off the brakes. So we treat it like brake, turn, off the brakes when we get to the turning situation, and then also the bump. We'll land on the back end of that, and then we assess where we are at that point. If we need to get a little bit more braking in to get the front end to set and take the left-hander for the second part of the bus stop, then so be it. If we overslowed on entry, we may not need to touch our brakes, and we may just be able to glide in with a little maintenance throttle. That works too. But there's a lot of improvisation going through the bus stop depending on this right-hander. So what do I mean? So let's go in on the way in. So we're braking. I'm turning in. A little bit of trail brake. I still have a little bit of brake in the car. I hit the bump. So here's my bump. This is what I mean by I'm cutting this section. I am pretty much trying to apex at this little red bit. So I'm basically the main curb I am straddling on the way in, and you can see how the car is up like this. So it is pretty in a bad state from a balance standpoint. But I don't have a lot of input in the car. I barely have any brake pedal in there. I've got some steering, of course, but the loaded tires are my left side tires, so those are the ones still on the track. So I'm okay here. I'll move forward, and then I land on the back end. So I am landing pretty hard here. Again, my pedals, I'm not really doing anything with them. So I'm not asking the car really to brake or accelerate. I'm just in a neutral state, letting the car and the suspension do what it needs to do going over the curbing. It lands as it lands and takes that one bounce for the dampers to kind of take their set. I start turning the other way. And so we get the car to start setting on the right side for this long left-hander effectively. But again, no pedals. I come through, I use this left curbing as much as I can because I'm trying to open up the front end. I'm trying to make this first part of the bus stop as straight as possible because that allows me to carry speed. So as I get the car settled and I start going over this curbing, again, I'm really quiet with my pedals while I'm over these undulations. I land, I'm in the middle of the bus stop. At this point, my vision is looking at the exit of the bus stop way down here, entry of the carousel. I see the line that I want to take from this point over this curb and over the second curb. I see that straight line that I want to take, and boom, I'm full throttle at this point. I believe I'm in fourth gear. Once I see that line of what I want to take, I stay in fourth gear and just ride it through and keep the angle as straight as possible, kind of like the uphill S's, because I'm going to be accelerating all the way through. If I do everything right, when I come out of the bus stop, I should be about mid-track entering into the carousel, the downhill carousel. So let's take a look at that again without me starting and stopping. So coming in, I'm going to really slow it down. Brake, turn in a little bit of trail brake, off the brakes. The car is going to jump, land, turn the car to the left, keep my hands, my steering angle the same. Look for that straight line. There's that straight line. Hammer it full throttle over these two curbs. Use all the curbs. They're your friend through there. And exit. It's it takes practice to get the bus stop correct. And my way through the bus stop may not be what is most comfortable for you as a driver. Like I said, another way through the bus stop is without the curbing. So, and I think there's probably some laps where I didn't take the curbing. So what I mean by that is rather than driving through this line right here, I delay my turn in a little bit and I just put my right side tires on this curbing. The car is a lot more balanced through there. It's a lot more controlled. It's less scary, I guess, is the proper word or terminology here. It's just everything's more balanced and it's more forgiving. Just understand that by doing that, your left-hander is going to be more severe because your angle of attack is a lot shallower for your left-hander. By cutting this first corner, you open up the rest of it to carry more speed. But that being said, because of the jump, if you don't take the jump and you take over here, you can get on throttle sooner because the car is not bouncing around. So it seems to be a bit of a wash, but see what works best for you. All right, coming through the downhill carousel, this is just patience. This turn doesn't ever seem to end, but I'll try to give you some tips to kind of help with that. So on your way through this, the temptation at this point is to just, bam, we got through the bus stop, we got a good run, keep that throttle pinned, and the car's singing, we want to go fast. But if you do that, you'll end up finding out you enter this carousel and all of a sudden you're going way too fast. The front end is just completely washing out. You're understeering out into the marbles. It's just a bad time. And then you got to get on the brakes and you got to really slow down to bring the car back down to the curbing. The best way to do this is as you bounce out of the bus stop here, what we want to do is we want to carry a little bit of that momentum to about mid-track. And then as soon as we get to about this point, mid-track, maybe this little seam here, this concrete here, get off the gas. Get off the gas, don't really touch the brake, coast. And I know there's a lot of people and maybe some people that teach that hear coast and they think it's a bad word. And the Cup car, coasting is perfectly fine. This car likes to coast. Just coast. The steering angle that you have in the car is going to act as a brake. You're going to be slowing the car down by just having steering angle. And as you're coasting through here, the platform is as balanced as it possibly can be because you're using all of the grip in the car for lateral grip to turn. As the car's speed slows down, you'll notice with the same steering angle, the front end will start to tuck in and start to take a narrower line. That's what we want to do for this carousel. We want to have a super late apex. By coasting, it allows the front end of the car to kind of slowly dive in, and it also has the added benefit of we're not burning any gas through here. If we go really hard with the accelerator all the way through this first entry, and then we get on the brakes to slow it down to really kind of tuck this car in, we're burning gas whenever we're on the throttle. We're also burning tire because we're going to be asking a lot out of that front left tire if we start touching the brakes to the carousel. So we're burning tires, we're burning gas. By keeping it at a coasted neutral state, we're doing neither of those. The tires are going to be happy, and it's just more repeatable, I find. It keeps you from overdriving the car. What I'm looking for in this car at this point is I'm looking for the flag stand on the exit of the carousel. So it seems to never come, but if our vision is up and we're looking through the corner, we will be looking for that flag stand. So we're looking. Where's that flag stand? Where's that flag stand? There it is. This is what I'm talking about. This flag stand with the dude standing in it. He is our apex point. We want to apex the car at this flag stand. So when we see that flag stand, as the car starts to take a more of aggressive dive into the corner, when we realize that the front end of that car is going to apex at that flag stand, we can pick up throttle. It doesn't mean that we wait until the flag stand before we get on the throttle. It means that as soon as the car's trajectory is going to get to that flag stand, that's when we can get on the throttle. So long as the car apexes at the flag stand, we could be full throttle at this point. And in fact, on this particular lap, I've already started to pick up the throttle at this point, and I'm not at the flag stand yet. So I'm full throttle right here, still not at the flag stand. But boom, right there is my closest point to the curbing. I missed it by, a tire width. I could have been a little tighter, but it ultimately didn't hurt me. That's the apex point. That flag stand is the closest I want to be at the curbing. If I do that, I can be full throttle in fourth gear and not worry about running through too wide on the exit of the corner. So full throttle, I'm opening my hands. I'm not trying to fight the car. I'm letting it kind of go where it wants to go. It'll track out over the curbing. We'll use all of the curbing, get the car over before the grass. That is not a 1X, and that's the fast way through the carousel. Any questions on the bus stop or the carousel? All right, you guys are awesome. Okay, now we're going to dive into the boot. This is actually one of my favorite corners in all of racing. We are going downhill. We are on camber, but the whole corner is downhill. So the car is really fighting you to under the brakes. When we get to the brake pedal, there's no brake marker anywhere around here. So we have to find something that will trigger us to say this is the brake point. For me, it is when I can see the curbing from the cockpit. So I'm going to go into the cockpit so you can see what I mean. So as we're coming down into this corner, we're trucking. We're going pretty good, 130 miles an hour. I wait until I can see the curbing. My eyes are up here. My vision is up here. I am waiting till I see that curbing, and that is going to trigger my brake point. So when I see curbing right there, boom, brake. That's my brake marker. It's not a brake marker alongside the car that is passing me in the car. It is my vision telling me, looking down the track, when I see a certain sight picture, that is my brake point. And this one just happens to coincide with the colors of the curbing becoming visible to me as a driver coming over that hill. I will brake in a straight line, maybe a little bit towards the mid-track from this angle. But the goal for me on this corner is a super late apex. The car is going to about halfway through want to rotate, depending on your setup. But the tendency of almost every car coming through here is oversteer about mid-corner. Embrace it. We want that. We want the car to start to rotate to get us on a good angle. As long as we can control it with the pedals, that will get us a good angle to accelerate coming out of the corner. So this is what I mean. I'm braking, nice wide entry. Right about here is where the car is starting to want to actually over-rotate, and that's just the nature of the corner. The front end has grip, the rear doesn't. And so depending on how aggressive your steering is, it will either exasperate it or not. And also how aggressive you are with your trail braking into the corner. I tend to be pretty tame on trail braking. I've got a little bit of brake pedal still in the car, but not a lot. I'm letting the car kind of coast through here. And as the car is rotating, I am waiting and keeping my vision up, looking through the corner to where I can kind of see that, where I want that apex to be. And that apex is where I can get on the throttle now, mash it, accelerate through that apex point, and carry that full throttle all the way down the hill. So I'm still waiting. I see my apex point. I start picking up throttle, and there it is right here. I don't have necessarily a spot per se of that's where I want my apex point to be. It's more of a feeling for me when I'm driving, but we can try to find one. I'm looking at that flag stand, and that looks like it may be a really good apex point. So as we're coming through here, I'm waiting for that car to rotate. So rotate, and then I hammer it. And my apex point could be when my car is kind of lining up with this flag stand at the apex. That could be a good vision. My actual vision is, it's a quirk of the sim. See this curbing, how it's flat, and then it has like this weird little more camber right here, or it's got more, I guess, elevation to it on the inside. Like, so it goes super flat and then it kind of dips up. That little dip where it transitions, that's my apex point. That's kind of where the maximum camber in the corner is, or just shortly thereafter. And that's where I'm trying to get this car to rotate and hit every time. So that's what I personally use, but that's such a really small, or you have to be hyper focused to be able to see that. You could use that flag stand. Keep your eyes up, and it's a much better, easier target to hit. So I might actually start using that flag stand. Oh, wrong one. If we do that, we're in third gear coming out of this corner. We accelerate through. We should be 100% full throttle. The biggest mistake I see coming through this corner, entering into the boot, is apexing too early. If you apex too early, you're going to end up out here in the weeds, going over and running risk of running into the grass. And if you're in the grass, you're probably going to tap the Armco. Late apex, late apex, late apex. If you're early, if you're running wide and you're getting out here before the curbing, it's because you're apexing way too early. You're not being patient enough. All right, we got through there good. We're going to get the rundown all the way into the heel of the boot. I believe this is the heel. We've got some really good brake markers here. The 200 board is a great marker for us coming into here. The car can brake at 200 no problem, and actually probably could go a little bit later if you had to try to outbrake somebody. The nice thing about this is while we're going downhill, as we're approaching the turn-in point, all of a sudden we're going uphill. So we're going to get this huge amount of compression. The front end of the car is going to love it. The brakes are going to love it. This car always seems to stop super quick coming into this turn. There's multiple lines through here. I've got what is a traditional line, and then I've got an auxiliary line or a secondary line, depending on if I'm racing somebody or if I'm on my own. If I am on my own, I tend to take kind of a midway track line through here. So I drive it down the middle, am patient, let the car run a little bit wide, and then I have one really late apex on the way up the hill. If I am racing somebody or I don't want anybody to dive me, I will brake in a straight line all the way down to the curbing right here, and I will double apex this corner. So my first apex will be this point, let the car run a little wide, get it rotated at the midpoint, and then apex again on the back end. You can also, another way you can do it is dive it down to this first apex, and then get the car slowed down enough and just follow the curbing all the way around, so the shortest distance, and just drive around the inside all the way around. Treat it like a carousel, and then accelerate normally coming out. All three are perfectly reasonable. I've seen people that are fast with all three of those. Some people that I know will always dive it. Doesn't even matter if they're racing anybody, even if they're on a qualifying lap. Some people will drive it out deep, even if they're racing somebody, because that's where they feel that they're quickest. There's just lots of lines into this corner. I will say, though, if you are racing somebody and they are alongside your inside, I would really try to over-under them on the way through the corner. And what I mean by that is brake a little bit early, let them try to outbrake you. So they're going to go in deep. They will come in here, hit that first apex, but they're going to be carrying too much speed. They're going to run really wide. And then at that point, when they run really wide about mid-corner, you broke a little bit early planning for that late apex, and you just cut underneath them and get a good run, and you repass them on the way up the hill. That happens a ton here. So always look for the over-under if somebody does get alongside you. Anyway, with all that being said, this is my line. Brake at the 200. A little bit of a displaced apex on the first one. Start bringing it in nice and tight. And then the goal is to apex right here, way around the corner on the way up the hill. I like third gear through here. Second gear tends to be a little too much torque for me, and I tend to get a little bit of oversteer, which can kind of delay me getting to full throttle. Third gear, I can get to full throttle a lot sooner, and ride that full throttle wave all the way through. Be very careful on coming out of this corner. If there is one place that gets really slick on this track, it's this corner, especially on the exit, and especially if you're in second gear. The back end will try to swap on you if you're not watching for it, or if you're kind of a little lazy with the hands. And I've seen a lot of spins coming out of this corner. On the way out, there's a little bit of extra pavement outside the white line that we can use. So on this lap, I didn't actually use it, so I could have gone a little faster. But this is all, if I'm really on a heater, I'll be using every single bit of this asphalt all the way up the hill.
We do the same thing in real life.
Absolutely, yeah. And watch the IMSA races too. Their left side tires are basically mowing the grass. So, all right. So now we've got another straightaway. That corner through the that portion of the track is super important because it leads on to this straightaway, and it leads into a corner which is one of the slowest corners on the track. So this is a really good passing opportunity as well. And we'll go over passing opportunities here in a second once we're done. But we just had a really complicated corner where you can get a good run relative to other competitors, and that leads into another heavy braking position, which is the recipe for a good passing opportunity. But assuming we're not racing anybody quite yet, and we're on our own, let's just focus on the line. So again, we got really good brake markers, 3, 2, 1. I like to brake at the 200 board here. Notice the theme at 200s and 400s around this track, but I like the 200 on this particular corner. We are cresting a little bit of a hill. So we're going uphill, and then we are kind of plateauing and then slightly going downhill. So the braking is not our friend, or at least gravity is fighting against us a little bit under this braking. So we're going to brake at 200, and we're going to keep this car lined up in a straight line as best as possible. My line through here is a really, really late apex, like super, super late. That's all that's in my head is late. Ironically, though, you turn in what feels like early for that late apex. And the reason why is we're going downhill. There's not a lot of camber in this corner. This car already likes to understeer, so we have to play for that understeer. When we turn into this corner, this car is going to try to understeer. We have to turn in early to play that understeer to hit that late apex. A little bit of counterintuitive, but I'll show you what I mean. So we're waiting. We're just going to turn in after the 100 board. The car is starting to really understeer because notice how downhill we're going. So there is no grip on the front end of this car. So we have to really be aggressive with trail braking. We really have to try to get it down. And then the apex point is, I'd say, 2/3 of the way around the corner. Single apex point. What has changed on the track, I think since the recent update, is you used to be able to run as wide as you want on the exit. Not anymore. Running wide on the exit will give you a 1x very easily. So on the way out, we really need to be focused on getting a really good late apex to prevent running wide on exit to avoid the 1x. So you can get up on this curb, that's fine. What you can't do is from what I can tell, you can't get this right side tire over the white line, or else you're going to get a 1x. It comes up extremely quickly, almost unfairly quickly in my opinion, but that's the rules. Everybody has to obey them. That's what iRacing has baked into the track. But yeah, you used to be able to go all the way out to the grass if you wanted to, which made this corner a lot easier because you could apex it early and get away with it. Now you really have to apex it late to avoid getting the 1x through here. So showing it again real quick. Coming in, braking at the 200, turning in after the 100. I leave it in third gear through here. Super late apex. The car will grip up around apex level as the downhill kind of ends. And then we get a good run coming out of the corner. Coming out of the boot, we come to the slowest corner on the track. This one is a delicate entry. Like 2 corners ago, there are a million ways to this corner. I'll show you 2 that I like. The 2 that I like is either a wide entry, so a traditional super late apex around this corner, or a tight kind of carousel-esque line through the corner where you get down to the curbing as soon as possible and you kind of slow your car down and ride the inside of the curbing all the way around. So you make the corner just as short as possible. Both are perfectly legitimate and have their places. If you do the traditional line where you run deep and then try to get the car turned out here, you will lose grip. As you're starting to turn the car, this corner, we're going uphill and then it plateaus. So right as you start your turn in, the grip is falling away. So it seems to just take forever for the car to actually get turned into a good spot for the apex. If we dive it in here and fight and send the car in down to the curbing, we are still going uphill on our turn in. So the car will turn in and behave a lot better on the entry. But we are going to get to that kind of crest in the track right around where my cursor is. So just after we get down to the curbing, the grip is going to go away, meaning we have to overslow the car in order to keep the car down on the curbing. If we maintain the speed, it's just we're going to run wide and it's going to be a bad day. So both lines have their advantages and disadvantages. Whichever is more comfortable for you, I would suggest trying. On this particular lap, I kind of take a hybrid. I'm right in the middle between the two. So I didn't dive down to the curbing. I kept it nice and wide. And then I do a super late apex way back here. Like I don't know, 5/7 of the way around the corner, I guess. 2/3, 3/4. I'm looking for these trailers or these RVs over here as kind of my apex points when I'm driving. If I don't see those RVs, I haven't reached the apex point. So I have to be patient and wait and wait and wait. Once I start seeing these last 4 RVs or this brown RV, then I can start going. And you can see it reflected in my pedals too, my telemetry coming through this corner. So as we come up this corner, I get my braking done. I'm bleeding off the brakes. I'm off the brakes. I'm basically coasting, waiting. I add a little throttle. I come out of the throttle because it was too early. I'm waiting, being patient, just maintenance throttle until I know I'm going to make the corner, and then I smash it. It just takes forever to get there through that corner, and it's a really tough corner.
Gear, Chris.
Yes.
Well, what gear?
Oh, what gear? Third gear. I was just about to say. Third gear through there. Again, second gear, too much torque through the rear tires. It's so easy to light them up coming through that corner. This car has so much power. Third gear.
You can see the gear at the bottom of the screen now. Yeah. The new way.
They fixed it. Thank goodness. There you go. There's the gear. So I'm never going into second anywhere around this track. I am keeping it in third or higher all the way through. So that corner leads into a little chute into the penultimate quarter, which is super fast left-hander. You don't need the brakes for this corner. You should be able to just lift, coast on entry, get a good, what feels like an early turn in. It's just the understeer pushes you on line, but it always feels like I'm turning in too early. So I will lift at about the 200 board right here. Lift. So full on lift all the way off the throttle. As I'm turning in, that effectively loads the front axle. So I'm taking the car from this state, lifting off the throttle. It puts it neutral. So I get some grip on the front end to turn in. Lots of grip at the apex point. We can see a ton of the track, which means it's on camber. It's trying to help us. I turn in before the 100, dive it down here. So I'm trying to get the left side tires down to the curbing. The understeer usually prevents it. The fast line, from what I can tell through here, is nibbling this curb. I missed it on this particular lap, but my fastest laps are when my left side tires are just nibbling. You get a little bit of the rumble, just a touch in the wheel. But if you get up on this curb, it's angled the wrong way, and so it just ends up kicking you out even further. So don't touch the curb or don't get up on the curb, just a little bit of tiny nibble on the way through. We want to apex it at the traditional apex point, if not later. Fourth gear through here, unwind our hands on the way out. If we come up on this curbing, we got to make sure that our hands are straight. We don't want to hit this curbing with any significant steering angle because the car does bounce around on it. In fact, the diffuser tends to bottom out on it as well. Sometimes you see some sparks. I don't know if I see them on this particular lap. No. As long as you keep your left side tires on the curb, you won't get a 1X. If you go all four over the curb, you will get a 1X. So this is actually perfectly fine. Any further and you will get a 1X. I don't necessarily know if there's an advantage to going wide here or not. I've had really fast laps where I keep it nice and tidy and my right side tires just get on this curb and my left side tires are on the track, and I've had really fast laps that way as well. So going over this curbing can upset the car if you're not ready for it. Just make sure you practice doing that. If you get in trouble coming through this corner, look where all the run out is. Look where the trouble is and where the bailout is. The bailout, like turn one, is on track exit or a turn exit. It's out here. Look at all this. This is all paved. It's not even gravel. If you get into trouble or the car starts to oversteer or somebody tried to dive it into you, open your hands, drive out here. You may get a slowdown if you go too wide, but your car is not wrecked. If you try to save it or try to be a hero because you don't want to get the 1X or you don't want to get a slowdown, that's where people tend to lose control of the car and spin it into the inside wall or J-hook it into the outside. See it in real life too. There's so many wrecks, I'm sure, Jonathan, you can probably say, that probably happen on this inside wall because people lose it. and they try to be a hero.
Every session.
Instead of
Almost
open their
every
hand.
session.
Exactly. You gotta just be smart. Live to fight another day. If the car starts over rotating, get off the pedals smoothly. Don't just jump off them. Don't jump on the brake because that's just going to exasperate it. Open your hands, drive nice and straight, and you'll be fine. As soon as we come over that curbing, we got to get the car over to the left because we're about to go right through a very fast right-hander. This fast right-hander is fourth gear. It's almost as soon as we get to the car to the left, we got to get back on the brakes. And it's not a heavy brake. It's just enough to kind of get the front end set, get some grip on that front tire so we can actually get some turn. And I always feel like I'm turning in so early for this final corner. Like, I feel like I'm going to drive it through the grass, but there's no grip. So it's just understeer, understeer, understeer. If you wait too long to turn in, the car won't turn. It just won't. And you'll have to just be so slow through this corner. It's super fast corner. You turn in basically as soon as you get to the left side of the track here. Another spot to initiate your turn in or where you want to do it. When this tire barrier turns into Armco or this sign over here on the left, we want to be turning in basically by the time we get to the sign. We need to start our turn in already. So we're turning in here, a little bit of braking pedal. We want to apex it at just like the normal traditional apex point. Nothing too late on this corner. If you try to apex this corner too late, you're too slow because it's the only way you could get to a late apex on this corner is by over slowing the car and turning in too late. So we want to apex right about where I am now, about halfway through the corner, unwinding our hands and trusting that the car is going to hold. The closer you get to the wall, the faster you went. So it's a high risk, high reward. But the key is you're not fixing the car at this point. The car is going to go where it's going to go. Everything depends on where you turn in and where you apex and when you pick up your throttle. So if you hit that outside wall on the exit, you made the mistake right here, not at the wall. So really focus on getting a really good run. The best way to avoid running into that outside wall is keep your vision up. You need to be looking up, up, up. Look as far down the track as you can. Your car will go where you're looking. If you're looking 2 feet in front of the car, you're looking like when you're at this point, if you're looking at the curbing, you don't know where that wall is and how close you're going to come to it. If you're looking down past the wall down the straightaway, you'll have a better idea of how the car is coming out and if you're going to need to get out of the throttle because you're going to flirt with that wall or not. Always.
Can I get a cockpit view
Yes.
right at the apex?
Absolutely. So coming in here. Oh. I was going to slow it down a lot. Okay. So slowing it down. Turning in before the white line there. We're going to apex right about here. So my apex point, I'm looking at trying to get it close to this, I guess, radio tower.
Great, thanks.
And the car will run out. So yeah, that's a lap of Watkins Glen. Do we have anybody have any questions? All right, so I wanted to show, let's see if I think I recorded it. I had some laps with a student where I was hounding the heck out of him to try to get him upset. Try to fill his mirrors and put pressure on him to see if he would make a mistake. So to try to get a race session going or try to get a little bit of practice on that front. So you can kind of see some alternative laps or alternative lines that between what he took and what I took. So just for reference, he's a club driver. I'm obviously a pro driver. And so I can kind of talk you what I'm trying to do if I come up on a car where I am trying to make a pass, but they obviously don't want me to pass. And my instruction to him was, you don't want me to pass you. So do whatever you can. We're at the final laps. You don't want me to pass you. So as an attacking driver through here, I'm trying to do everything I can to distract him, to take his focus and put it on me rather than his line. So he defended there, which is actually a good point to talk about real quick on defending. So coming up through the uphill S's, long straightaway, a ton of opportunity for the attacking car to draft on the defending car, get an extra few miles an hour coming into that corner, and make a good opportunity to pass into the bus stop. If you want to defend, make your intentions known that you're going to defend as soon as possible. You don't want to, or you can't, it's not legal for you to defend in response to somebody else making a move. So at this point, if I would have ducked to the inside because I am showing that I am going to try to pass him on the inside, and then he moves over after I've already moved over, that arguably could be a penalty on his behalf. He is moving in reaction to me. So he's blocking me. He sees that I'm going to try to take that line, so he moves over. Instead, what this driver does is he knows that I am going to have speed on him, and knows that the optimal thing for me to do to try to pass him is going to try to take the inside. He preemptively moves over. So he moves over before I move over, signifying that he's going to defend at that point, and effectively it's my choice at that time if I want to either stay with him, try to go even further inside of him, or return to the racing line to try to take him around the outside or give up on the attack. So big kudos. So right here, he's turned in and he's declaring a defensive line. I'm following him because that's the draft. He takes it all the way to the inside, and this is absolutely 100% a defensive line. You would not take the bus stop from this spot in the track. It makes no sense. So what does he leave me as the attacker? What are the options that I have at this point? Okay, really, I can't go inside of him because there's no room. I've got grass, so I can't drive in the grass. And I can't fit my car all the way in here. So my only option is this part of the track out here. So I'm going to stay behind him as long as I can to keep the draft, and then pop out to try to get on the racing line to open up the corner, and so I can take the corner as fast as I can. Well, here's the thing. As the defending driver, he's entitled to the racing line so long as no one is alongside him. So because I haven't gotten alongside him, he can return to the racing line when he wants to take the corner at a normal speed. So while it looks like he is moving in reaction to me moving over, I move over a little bit early, that's not the case. He's just returning to the racing line. So in reality, I had two options. I had another option. Stay right here on the inside and hope that he returns to the racing line, to which then I could send it up the inside. So effectively, I am undercutting him. Or do what I did, go to the racing line because I think he's going to take the inside line, a full defense from me attacking. But he returns to the racing line as I did at the same time, and so it's a busted opportunity for me. I'm not in a position to where I can make a safe pass on him. But what can I do? Well, I can get right up on his bumper and really start pressuring him through these corners. I am showing him my nose where I can. I am filling his mirrors up. I am forcing him to focus on me rather than the driving. So he doesn't know if I'm going to dive in that corner. He doesn't know if I'm going to dive somewhere else. He ultimately ends up running a little wide there because he's looking at me. He blinks out at this particular case, so ignore that. We'll get to where he pops back in. There he pops back in. So let's pretend he defended it. It was just fine. I get back up on him here in a second. He's got a little bit of room. But now we're coming through the uphill S's like before. And you can see how strong the draft is in these cars going through the S's. Remember on my lap on my own, I was tickling 162. I'm at 162, 163, 164, and 165. I hit 166 in a draft. So I am 4 miles an hour faster behind another car than I am on my own. Getting up to his bumper, I'm going to start trying to show, again, more pressure. I am trying to pass him by not diving him, but by forcing him to make a mistake. But he's relenting. Not unrelenting. He is driving his line while still keeping an eye on me, seeing where I am, and forcing me to try to find alternate lines to try to pass him. So if he's on the ideal line, I have to try to come up with something pretty spectacular to drive offline to go faster than him. I show a little bit. He defended a little bit. No big deal. We keep pushing through. Same thing up here. Not
Why
really a
didn't
good
you take
opportunity.
him on the inside right there?
I didn't have enough space. I didn't have. And that's a very good question. You mean like right here on this corner?
Yeah, because right now, if you aggressively got to the inside, you could outbrake him and get that corner, get to there before him.
For sure. And that is always an option. And if this is the final lap and I've got 3 more corners to go, I'm probably thinking about this. But I've got, let's see here. If I look at,
Oh,
there's
it's not that
probably,
close.
yeah, I'm a little over a car length behind him. That would be what I would probably call a dive, like just a pretty aggressive dive bomb. I've also been following him for a couple laps, and he tends to take, on the previous laps, he was taking a shallow line on entry. So if he takes that shallow line on entry again, and I try to dive him, we're gonna meet right here at this point, basically. And I would be in the wrong because I am behind him and I caused the contact. So is it possible? It is. But based on where he broke, where I broke, there just really wasn't an opportunity to get down underneath him. But great question. Coming up to the fast left-hander, this is not a passing zone. It's single file through here. If you're going too wide with somebody, you're asking for trouble. Same thing here, not a passing zone because it's leading onto your straightaway. All right, so I've got a really good run on him coming into turn 1. Here's my question for the class. If you were able to get a good run coming out of the final corner and you're coming up on someone like this, and let's say you're even a little closer than I am right now, do you pass into turn 1? Who here thinks that turn 1 is a good passing opportunity? Speak up.
Say it depends on the other driver.
Okay.
If you know you've got pace on that driver, then you probably take the pass. If
Okay.
you're very similarly paced, you probably wait.
Okay. Why would you wait on the similar pace? If you had the opportunity, let's assume that you could make a clean pass on them. If you got on the inside and you took the apex away, you could get by them going into turn 1. If you guys are similarly paced, do you still take that opportunity?
The biggest issue with taking the passing opportunity here is you're sacrificing turn 1 and you're going to end up losing it down the straightaway, and so they just pass you back. Is a pretty likely scenario.
Exactly. And that's the crux of what I'm not saying that you can't pass into turn 1, especially if it is a car that's off the pace, like either a lap car or let's say somebody got an atrocious run out of the final corner compared to you. Okay, you can make a pass into turn 1. But if you pass somebody into turn 1 that is of similar pace, even if you have the opportunity, you draft up on them and you get alongside them and you are neck to neck, you guys break at the same time and you're fully alongside. It is your corner as the inside car. I still wouldn't do it because for the exact reason that you just said. You're slow. Both of you are slow through that corner, so you're losing speed to the rest of the field. But let's ignore that. Let's say you're fighting for the lead and it's the final lap. You come out of that corner, he or she is going to be right on your rear bumper on your way out, and they will do that draft all the way up the hill through the S's into the bus stop. They'll have 4 miles an hour on you, and they will probably be past you completely before the bus stop, and there's not a lot you can do about it. I would recommend setting up for the best run of your life coming through turn 1. Make it so it seems like you're thinking about passing, so they maybe take a defensive line and they sacrifice their run through turn 1. You get on the racing line, get a really good run, and that even exacerbates the run that you have down the straightaway, and that makes the pass into the bus stop much easier because you've got all the speed and you've drafted them the whole way. So I actually argue that, and typically turn 1 is not a good passing zone for that reason, because the car in front is going to be at such a disadvantage from a drafting standpoint all the way down the straight. Now, this gets thrown out of the window when there's like a 4-car train. Let's say there's 2 more cars in front of the car in front of me on this scenario. If there's cars in front, I could make a move on this car into turn 1 because I can draft off the cars in front of them coming out of the corner, and it will even everybody up. He's not going to get an advantage on my rear bumper because I will be following those other two cars. So if you're in a train and you have other cars to draft on coming out of the corner, yes, you lose some speed at the apex point, but you will regain that back on the cars in front of you. And so you can make that work. So that's the nota bene through there. All right, so coming through here, practicing what I preach, being patient, waiting. We both get pretty good runs coming through there, but I am right on his butt at this point. I am going to try to use it to my advantage. You have to time it through here, right? If you're right on their bumper like I am right now, it's hard to pop out and drag by them. He's taking a defensive line, so my only option is to try to go around the outside. He cuts off, and the reason I stalled out was because on the uphill S's, there's really only one line through there, and I got to his bumper too soon. And I get up to his bumper too soon, I have to now regulate my speed to his speed. We're now in a line. It's like the HPD. If you've ever done the HPDE, what does your instructor say? Expect a point by from the car behind, the slower car, or the car ahead. Expect that point by coming on the next straight. So what do? You lag back a little bit, get a good run coming through the corner. They point their finger out the window. You're 15 miles an hour faster than them. You just blow by them. If you pull right up on their bumper and you match their speed, then they point by. Well, now you pop out, and now you have to accelerate at their speed to try to get by them at the same point. So you want that head of steam at the right spot to be able to get past the car. So I think this is the final go, just for a little bit of fun. We're going to go through turn 1 again. This time I've got a little bit of a lag. I'm not right on the bumper, so I have a little bit of room that I can accelerate to and pick up that draft. So you can see it work here. Same car, same power. But you can see how fast I'm able to get up alongside him. Get all the way up alongside him. We go too wide. Or we try to go through too wide, but I think best of it. I pull out of it. And then I think this final lap is the one where we try to go too wide. And this is what tends to happen through the bus stop. So we're right alongside. He takes the defensive line like he's done every single time. I move over and take that outside line. We come in and we're going to take this too wide. This is the problem that the bus stop presents in racing, is you're too wide going into a spot that really doesn't have space for two cars. You see it in pro racing all the time. Through any races at Watkins Glen, cars door each other through the bus stop all the time. If you find yourself in this situation, sometimes being patient or giving up is okay, because you don't want to have a huge wreck. Now, if you're racing for the lead, it's the final lap, context matters. But if you're on lap 3 and somebody puts it too wide or is making an aggressive move on you going into the bus stop, maybe that's not the time to fight. Maybe wait and see. Maybe they are faster and you can draft on them and they can pull you to the next set of cars. But going too wide through the bus stop is at best going to make you slow. At worst is going to wreck you both. But let's say it is for the lead and you're going to have this tough battle and you want to show off in front of the broadcasters. You have to obey and understand that there's going to be another car alongside you through this really hairy section of track. So you have to, as Fernando Alonso says, give it the space. The space has to be given through here. The other car does a phenomenal job of giving space to me, and I think I do a pretty good job of giving space to them. So on entry, where I normally like to drive it over that curb, I can't. So I give him way more than enough. But even if he didn't take this, I'm still giving him room to where he would be on the track. So I can't assume that I can put the car right here and that he's going to drive four wheels off the track at the apex point. I can't assume that. I have to give him enough space to be legal on the track. So 2 wheels, left side of the white line. So yeah, it looks like I could have been even closer, but in reality, if he would have driven 2 wheels on the track, we would have been very close. Coming through here, same thing. He can't take the normal line, which is to go over this curbing, because I'm here. So he has to pinch the corner off and sacrifice that corner and take a wider line, knowing that there's most likely a car next to him. Through the left-hander, same thing. Where normally I might drift out to about mid-track, I can't because I know that there's a car on my outside. Coming through here, same thing. Where normally at this point I would just drive straight and straight line this, I know there's another car on the inside, so I actively have to make this a turn, a little bit of an S curve through here, knowing that he's going to be out there. Ultimately, this is what ends up usually happening, is somebody makes a mistake because they are not in a position that they're used to. So on this particular case, my student, I don't think has ever driven this angle through the bus stop from a wide angle coming into this curbing. And this curbing is pretty substantial, especially if you get two wheels way on the right side and you add a lot of steering angle because you know there's a car on your left. What's the result? He loses it. Oversteer coming out of the corner because of too much curbing. And ends up having the lazy spin. You don't... I guess the biggest lesson that I'm trying to teach here is that context matters when you're racing. It may be great if you know the track from like a classroom perspective and stuff like that. But as soon as we get out there and we go wheel to wheel, a lot of it gets thrown out the window when you got a car right next to you. So everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. So as soon as you start going too wide and you start getting pressure from other cars, that is why we race. That's like the thrill that we're chasing, that competition. Otherwise, none of you guys would be here. And so we need to practice like we are going to race. So coming out here, doing hot laps, learning the track, that's all really important to be able to set a good qualifying time to be at race pace. But we also need to focus and we also need to practice on the wheel-to-wheel aspect. Because if this is the first time, the final lap, if that is the first time that you are experiencing the bus stop too wide, you're probably going to have a bad time because you're going to be put in a situation that you are not used to. And if that is the first time you experience a situation you're not used to, odds are you're probably going to either have a moment or you're not going to be able to go or be as efficient as you normally would if you would have practiced it over and over. So practice alternate lines. Get out there with a buddy, join some of the hosted sessions that get put up by the PCA all the time. Go wheel to wheel. Don't be afraid to dice it up in practice. That's the point. If you get wrecked in practice, somebody bumps you through the bus stop because you're going too wide or somebody runs to the back of you, don't get mad. It's practice. We can hit reset and jump into another car. Use that opportunity as learning. So when it does happen and it matters, you're ready for it. And that's kind of the big takeaway I wanted to kind of make sure you guys had. So anyway, any questions? I'm about 15 minutes over, but I thought that might be important for us to talk about. No? Well, you guys have been awesome. Thank you so much for being attentive. Like I said, if you're in pro or club, I believe there's a PCA EDE that's going on or something like that. If you're a sport challenge, feel free to start your own or go out and practice what you learned. Getting out there and driving at the end of the day, that's the best thing, the best way to improve. If you have any questions whatsoever, let me know. You can always message me here on Discord. I will be happy to try to answer it to the best of my ability. The other thing I would also suggest, if you are members of either Garage 61 or VRS, there's full levels of telemetry there. If you are interested in the data aspects of this, let me know, and I can make sure you're invited to the PCA team. There's lots of us that are on there, including myself. Every single lap I turn in iRacing is on VRS, and if you are a member of the team, you can see every single one of my laps. So you can compare your data against my data and say, oh, Chris is so slow through here, I am so much faster, and tell me how to drive. But the good thing is if you're technical like that and you want to look at the data, it's a great opportunity to be able to learn, to see where you can improve, because the data don't lie at the end of the day. So thanks again for attending. We'll be here in a couple of weeks for the next round.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you. That was great.